Dear Simon and the League of Lenient Lovelies.
Yeah.
It's new and it's fresh. Allow me to take you back to the halcyon days of the early summer 1994, to a small convent school I attended in a sleepy Welsh valley town. School term was soon to end, and these were exciting times for a 9-year-old boy like me. You see, the 1994 Football World Cup was nearly upon us, and close behind it were 6 weeks of summer holidays. I was beside myself with anticipation of a summer spent gorging on football and then a little bit more football. To ready ourselves for the competition and ensure that we could confidently identify the entire lineup of teams like Cameroon and South Korea, myself and the other boys in our class were heavily involved in collecting football stickers for our World Cup sticker books. I imagine, Bobby, you were a big sticker collector.
Couldn't get enough of them.
Yeah, well, you have to. Did you go for the coins for the petrol station?
Yeah, of course. Well. Back in the 70s.
We spent is that when it was?
Yes.
Okay. We spent every waking moment outside of lessons swapping stickers, searching for rare players and finding the much coveted shinies. Got that. Oh, I need that swap. Go on. Oh, come on. Stickers passed through grubby hands at manic speeds. Ignorant of the beautiful game and disapproving of the sticker collecting, however, was Mrs. Trumbull, our class teacher. She was an obstinate, hard-eyed sort who was determined to eke out every last moment of imparting knowledge to her charges before they left her class forever. In retrospect, she was probably a lovely lady who just wanted the best for her kids, but to a 9-year-old, her zero-tolerance attitude, as we discussed in the playground at the time, and a booming, room-shaking bark meant that she was absolutely terrifying. Mrs. Trumbull was particularly fond of inventors and pioneers such as Captain Scott and Alexander Graham Bell. One day in summer term, she spent the morning teaching us all about Sir Alexander Fleming and his world-changing discovery of penicillin. No one paid much attention, however, as we were all focused on the clock, waiting for the school bell to ring for lunch and further football sticker action. Got it. I need that one. Can I have your shiny? Please. Be your best friend. Give you some fudge. Sure enough, the bell finally went and was... I remember it.
Fudge? Right, whatever.
Yeah, you could
finger
swap.
of fudge.
You could swap some fudge.
Really?
For Ronaldo.
Did it have to be fudge?
Brilliant.
The old Ronaldo.
Yeah, fat Ronaldo.
Different times. I think he'd been eating the fudge. Sure enough, the bell finally went, and so excited was I about trying to find the famous striker Romario to complete my Brazil squad page. How much for... I think he's 2 fingers of fudge at least for Mario. I even waved food of any kind and absent-mindedly stuffed my mum's butter and ham sandwich, with the crusts cut off, into the recesses of my old-fashioned desk. You know, the ones where you lift the lid to store your belongings. A Romario sticker was obtained, and a week passed without a care, until one school morning we walked into class to find a very solemn and sour Mrs. Trumbull stood waiting for us, her face set and impassive. She said nothing while we took our seats, and then, to my dawning horror, Mrs. Trumbull reached over to her desk, grabbed something from it, and brandished it high in the air. Father Simon, I'm ashamed to say, it was my sandwich. Barely recognisable now, I knew it from the clear plastic bag it had been stored in, and it's fair to say the sandwich looked utterly revolting, wet and green and thickly covered in slimy, clumpy mould. I'd meant to throw it away, but the glorious game of football had made me forget all about it. I went cold and my heart sank. I was in trouble. You have to do this in a big Welsh accent, Father Simon.
Great.
However, Welsh John,
yes.
I'm not going to.
Oh, shame.
Quiet, year 4, barked Mrs. Trumbull.
Yeah, go on.
Let's not deal in stereotypes.
Let's
Simon.
not.
Okay. It's come to my attention that our cleaner was tidying up the schoolroom ready for the end of term, looked in one student's desk, and she came across this. The oozy remnants swayed and rotated in her lofted hand. I breathed deeply and braced myself for the onslaught that was to come. She pointed across the room at me, and the entire class wheeled around in their seats to study my reddening face. However, I wasn't expecting what she said next. John here has obviously taken our lessons so close to heart that he's decided to experiment with making his own penicillin. If only you other boys stop fussing so much with those stupid football stickers, or whatever they're called, and applied yourselves more, you could be like him and learn something. Well done, John. I'm proud of you, young fella. She didn't say that. My jaw completely dropped. The class regarded me in something like awe, a junior boffin in their very midst, a true science pioneer. Sweating, my mouth popped open, closed like a goldfish. I was astounded. It was all the same to you, John. The experiment has been a success, but can I now dispose of the results, please? Asked Mrs. Trumbull. I nodded wordlessly, and she dropped the sandwich into the bin, and the class resumed its normal course. I didn't know how, but I had escaped unscathed, and this truth, Father Simon, has remained a secret for 23 years. And so I need forgiveness not from Mrs. Trumbull, who, despite her keen scientific mind, had led herself to the wrong conclusions in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. I also don't seek forgiveness from the school cleaner, who shouldn't have been poking her nose into my private affairs. Thanks very much indeed. Butt out! It's from Sir Alexander Fleming himself that I have to say sorry. He'd made the discovery of penicillin accidentally, which had merited being knighted in 1944 and given a Nobel Prize in 1945. But to the population of a small convent school in a sleepy Welsh Valley town, one 9-year-old boy genius had just done the very same. I also asked forgiveness from my mum, whose sandwiches were always very tasty. Simon and the League, I throw myself down before your judgment, but please bear in mind I always finish my sandwiches now. I even eat the crusts. Says Welsh John. What was that cleaner do? I'll just have a little look. Oh, look, smelly sandwich. Sister Bobby.
Well, that's the thing, the cleaner probably smelt it. I always remember being told off, don't grow penicillin in your hot milk cups. Bring your cups down, Bobby, otherwise you're in trouble. The thing is, Mrs. Trumbull knew.
That's a good upbringing, that is.
That is, Mrs. Trumbull knew. I think she just turned a really negative situation where she could tell him off into something positive. She's fab. I love her. I wish I had her as a teacher. Completely forgiven. Very unsounding Welsh John. Yes. Welsh John, you're forgiven.
OK, all right, Brother Matthew.
Yes, 94 World Cup, from what I remember, was a pretty dull World Cup. No England, and, the final went to penalties. It was pretty awful. So,
the one in America?
Yes, it was, yes. Diana Ross missed an open goal. What I would say is, my instinct is that Mrs. Trumbull actually was trying to hammer home what penicillin was to a bunch of very bored students. And she decided, the way I'm going to do this is I am going to find this, and when this sandwich lands on her lap, she thinks, I'm going to make use of this, and these kids are going to understand what penicillin really is when I produce this sandwich. So I think she knew exactly what she was doing, and for that reason I'm going to forgive.
A 70s teacher would have thrown it, would have picked up the sandwich and thrown it at Welsh John.
Different times.
Take this home, boy.
Yeah.
But yes, we moved on.
Fortunately we have, haven't we?